As a huge Greedfall fan, I am vastly disappointed in myself for not realizing that new gameplay and information was revealed more than a week ago, and I had no idea, and nobody told me. Where was the marketing for it? Greedfall to me was a throwback to amazing old Bioware games, just like most games from developer Spiders. I have been their fan for more than a decade now, with the release of Mars Warlog, way back in 2013. Then they had Bound by Flame in 2014, and finally the Technomancer in 2016. To me, this was probably their breakout game in terms of popularity to the general masses. This game truly solidified them, to me, as my new BioWare replacement. And then came Greedfall in 2019, and boy oh boy, did the game take off. I mean, the community love for this game and its memes alone have made it my favorite game from the company, and one of my top RPGs in years. Now, did it review super well? No, because most that even gave this a chance didn't look at it for what it was, a AA classic throwback to older BioWare RPG games instead of the bombastic, huge AAA ones we get today. If you're watching this video on Greedfall 2, I'm going to assume you've played the first, so it doesn't really need a recap in the story department. Greedfall 2 is also not a sequel, but a prequel to Greedfall. The story starts 3 years before the events of the first game and the adventures of Desarde, the legate of the congregation.
Lady Desarde, niece of the Prince d'Orsay and legate of the Congregation of Merchants. My name is Desarde. I'm the legate of the Merchant Congregation. My name is Desarde. I'm a legate of the Congregation of Merchants.
Good day, my lady.
Desarde, legate of the Congregation on Tirfredi.
This time you play as a native of Tirfredi, uprooted by force from your island and taken to the continent of Gassan, where the colonists are from. In this old world ravaged by war and scarred by the Malachor plague from the first game, and the political scheming of the different factions, you need to regain your freedom and control of your own destiny, using diplomacy, cunning, combat, as well as help from any allies or companions you make. It's up to you to end one man's ambitions of conquest, which could spell the end for the continent and your island. So essentially, it's a reversal from the first game. Instead of being a colonist going to a strange native land, we play as the native going to a colonist continent with more cities and rural architecture. We're still getting the fish out of water, isekai story, just from the other perspective. Now, what's staying the same is obviously the character recreation, exploring the world, the dialogue choices, taking and completing various quests, and recruiting companions to go with you on your journey that you may or may not have romantic entanglements with. What's very different, however, is the combat. See, the combat in Greedfall is more related to an action RPG than anything else. Creatures in you both had armor and health, which protected you until it was broken. Enemies had a nebulous, like a nebulous type stat called balance, so you can do more balance damage to stun. You can pause combat at any point in that game as well, but you couldn't control the other party members, so it ends up being pretty meaningless to pause. So, to put it simply, there are 3 skills related to combat, which I assume will be brought back in 2. We had melee, magic, and technical. Melee is your typical song and dance of regular attack, heavy attack, and a fury attack you use after you build up enough of your, skill bar. There's essentially only 2 kind of weapons, so it was, heavy weapons and blades, each with unique, animations, and there was also blocking, parrying, and, dodging and rolling. Your typical, action fluff. Magic was very powerful early on, but was highly dependent on spamming mana potions constantly. You had 5 kinds of spells: stasis, storm, shield, heal, shadow, burst, but I never really delved too far into it besides getting the platinum trophy I needed, because it was just too clunky. It wasn't like it was made for the game. It was more about melee combat. Technical was, had 2 aspects to it. You had guns and bombs. You can equip the firearm, and you can use that with just matching whatever button you put it to. With bombs, you initially has it as traps. You would put traps on the ground. Eventually you can unlock where you can dodge roll, put a trap on the ground. You have ammo for your guns, which was, you had to keep buying ammo, finding ammo, so you had management for it. But that was my preferred way to play. Throwing bombs, throwing files with poison, shooting them out of the air, covering the ground and with poison, and it became extremely overpowered as the game went on. So that's what I went. So, but enough about how amazing I thought Greedfall, 1 was. Let's get into the gameplay differences that Greedfall 2 is now implementing. To put it simply, bye-bye action RPG, hello Dragon Age Origins combat. Now, if any of you RPG or Bioware enjoyers have heard of or played Dragon Age Origins, you know it's not only one of the best RPGs ever made, but one of the best games ever made. And Greedfall 2 is going right after that same style game, same style of gameplay. I know sometimes it's hard to sell to people to get into RTWP games, real time with pause RPGs, but this style of gameplay is associated with some of the best in gaming. Now, let's talk about some of the gameplay. Armor and magic is back as well, and I'm assuming technical is too, assuming for grenades and guns and traps. So if you want to command one party member to rush in and start using melee abilities while you command your magic user in the back to start charging up spells to cast, all while auto-attacking whatever enemy you're currently targeting, easy, done. Each companion also has passive abilities that help, out when you're exploring the world, such as disarming traps and picking locks, or being able to track animals and creatures in the wild. I know some fans are disappointed in this change from the first game, and I also kind of am, as I love the combat in 1, but I also love this kind of combat as well. I'm curious why they made such a dramatic change, though, and I figured they were going to use an upgraded version of combat they used in their Souls-like kind of game, Steel Rising, but they went in a completely different direction here. While it does look like the auto combat is a bit sluggish and lacks some polish, all of this will probably be ironed out by the time of release this summer. I'd encourage any Greedfall fan that hasn't played Dragon Age Origins to give it a shot. If you like that kind of game, even a little bit, you'll probably enjoy Greedfall 2. Another thing that should help Spiders before the game's release is player feedback. Greedfall 2 is going to launch in early access. This is the first time Spiders has done this, and welcomes any and all feedback, as they've admitted they've never done this type of game before. At launch of early access, players will be able to experience the entire beginning of the game, but saves won't be compatible with updates in early access or the final release of the game. Greedfall 2 is planning to be much more ambitious than the original, which in my mind, its only limitations were in the budget and, where you would see reused locations a lot, kind of like Dragon Age 2, and some of the animations. If both of those issues are fixed here and people give this gameplay style a chance, I can guarantee you'll love this game if the characters, world, and story is anything like the first. See you all in Tier for D.